The title of this video is basically the opener. Fighting game advice is generic. That's it, that's the video. But seriously, it is. As I browse Reddit often to look for questions that people are asking, or even when I myself am looking for answers on how to stop Kai from mashing / at me.
That's the neat thing. You don't.
There is always an asterisk to what anyone says. Any advice you get is always lacking, usually, 3 things. Context about your knowledge, what's unique to the characters, and the circumstance you are in. And that's not their fault. A quick question on the internet doesn't allow for a quick response without a ton of caveats. So let's take a moment to go over these points so we can better contextualize the advice that we're given. When giving advice, any advice, there always has to be a certain level of assumed knowledge. When it comes to fighting games, there is always an assumption that you, at least, know what your character does and what their moves are. Some assumptions can lead to confusion or simply ineffective advice. You commonly see this when new players are trying to learn how to stop a wake-up reversal. They will innocently ask, "What do I do to stop my opponent from waking up with DP?" And the answer they get is, you block or you use a safe jump. But notice here the assumption. There is an assumption that this player knows what a safe jump is. Most, if not all, fighting games never teach you what a safe jump is. However, it is one of those techniques that's used so commonly we forget it was acquired knowledge. This acquired knowledge is also in regards to character movesets and strategies. Sometimes you'll struggle with a move and someone will say it's reactable, but what you should look for and what your punish is going to be is unique to your character. It's not that the person was trying to purposefully misguide you, but rather there is a limit to knowing what the other person knows. What is unique to a character is honestly a big reason on why advice is generic. Depending on who you ask and where you ask, they have to generalize. They don't know who you play, and which character you play changes everything. The first question to ask oneself is, do you know the matchup? And the honest answer, for most of us, is no. We may know some of it, maybe a lot, but there's always more to a matchup than what we know. Primarily because there are 2 sides to that coin. What your opponent knows to do in the matchup, and what you know to do in the matchup. And those are 2 completely different circumstances. Each side must leverage their own unique tools in order to come out on top. I think this idea is best exemplified in a character like Ino. Because of Ino's unique dash, she can render certain moves completely ineffective or outright bad. And it's specific to her because no one else can just dash over your normals like she can. You have to completely change how you play when you fight against an Ino. That requires matchup knowledge. It cannot come from generic advice. Generic advice doesn't know such details like you have a god like 2H, or know your 2K can low profile. You need to know that and contextualize it. If you go to the character specific channels or subreddits, you could get better info, but it's still one-sided. All of it needs to be contextualized. And once you do contextualize it, you also need to practice it. Knowing the information and practicing are 2 different things. You must practice using the option and recognizing when it's good to use in order to feel confident in your play. The advice is just the first step. Second step, get out there and play. And as you're playing, you'll come to realize that some advice works sometimes. In certain situations, the advice is godly, and in other times, it's just bad. And that's the last fact about fighting game advice. It's generic to the circumstance. We tend to break down matches into points of interaction, those moments where one player takes an action that elicits a response from the other. Those interactions are one of a kind. And not just because they're difficult to replicate, but rather because the circumstances of the match makes it unique. How much meter did you have? What position on the screen were you? Was it round 1 or round 3? How much health did you have? Questions like these show how the decision making changes depending on the factors at play in that circumstance. But that's only one side of the equation. Sure, you can better know what you could do in a given interaction, but what your opponent does, that's a bit of a wild card. What their habits are, their preferences are, what knowledge they have about the matchup, all of that changes with each different opponent. That is an unpredictable element. And because of these things, fighting game advice has to be generic. It cannot know what the circumstance was, what position you were in, what opponent's mindset was, nothing. If you ask online, how do I get around Testament zoning, you get told the usual advice of you dash block, jump over his projectiles, fuzzy the Arbiter sign. But all of those things assume the Testament will play the standard zoner way. What if you're playing against a highly active Testament? One that utilizes anti-air projectiles more, teleports a lot more, and is just generally more aggressive. That advice, it ain't so helpful. Whatever advice you receive, recognize that it is not absolute. Just like your game plan, you must be fluid and adapt to the circumstance. The answer to Bridget constantly rolling at you is 6p, but if she cancels her roll, the answer is no longer to 6p. You must contextualize your solutions to the match itself. So the next time you ask or receive a piece of advice about the game, take a moment to consider what information may be missing and what context you're looking to use it in. It's your job to take the advice and contextualize it. This, in and of itself, is a skill that even us casuals have to get good at.